And I'm curious what you guys think about, how much time you maybe spend on the paperwork throughout the year, and do you find it a burden, or do you find it easy? Is it stuff you would do anyway?
Well, the first couple of years, it definitely was overwhelming, I think, because there are records that you don't know you're supposed to keep or how to keep them, and sort of getting a feel for what's required. And all the records that are required are incredibly useful just for managing a business and managing a farm. And so slowly I've developed these systems that work really well, and I pull upon them all the time when I'm looking at breeding records or trying to follow up animals that I've pretty much developed for NOFA that have proved to be valuable. And now I would say that it probably takes me an afternoon to fill out the application, because all my records are organized, which is something I have to be sort of forced to do. It's it's not in my nature to have all these files where they are, and I've finally gotten a system that really works. I can fill out the application in a fairly short amount of time, and I use these records all the time. So yeah, it was definitely a learning curve, and definitely took a little time and anxiety to start off with, and now everything goes fairly quickly and smoothly, and it's very beneficial overall.
Yeah, I'm not a procrastinator, so I got the application in the mail and I had it done. I did it the next morning, sent it in, done. So I know exactly how long it took me. It took me about 2 hours to actually do the application. It took me an hour to freaking copy it.
Well, you can always forego the copying
but aside from the copying issue, it was 3 hours, and usually when the inspector comes, you can count on another 3 hours, and that's pretty much it. Now there's record keeping, like Kristen was saying, but that record keeping that NOFA requires, even if you weren't certified, you should do it, because you're running a business and you want these kind of records. You want records of when you planted things, when you harvested things, how much fertilizer you put down, when you put it down, because that's what you're going to use next year. You start keeping a log, and then next year you don't say, geez, when did I start planting beets? You don't have to. You just, that's, and so when you have that kind of system down, which is what they ask, even if they weren't doing it, like I said, even if you weren't going to get organically certified, you want to have record-keeping systems that they ask for. Yeah.
Is there a sort of computer programs that you use to do this, or is it just Excel files?
I just use Excel files, and they when the inspector comes, they'll want to see. They'll ask for some of your paperwork. They look through your files and they'll say, "Can you have a receipt for your fertilizer purchases and things like that?" So you have to have a place where you can access whatever receipts you have. It's a little bit like an audit, if you've ever been audited by the IRS, but it's not that thorough. They just want to see a few receipts. So I'm looking at maybe 6 hours a year that it takes me, plus the money, and after that it's really not. There's no other issues. Greg came snooping by once because he wanted a sample of sweet corn. It took me like 30 seconds to give you a sweet corn, and then I ended up chatting with you for a while, so he burned more of my time just talking.
Well, that's the personal touch that you got.
I think I'm probably still more in the beginner stages. I'm still refining my record-keeping systems, but I've never had an issue with an inspection because of them. It's more just from my nature. I want things to be able to be a little bit more clearly communicated. So submitting records like planting maps and things like that, I'm always trying to tweak it. So I would say that I probably spend at least a full day on it, but that's probably more my compulsive nature than than anything else. I think you could do less. But it's definitely not a burden, and I love having that information to draw on, especially because I do most of my planning for the next growing season in December and January, and then hopefully by February I know exactly when I'm going to be starting seeding in the greenhouse and exactly what amendments I'm going to be putting on. So it's generally not a problem at all when that recertification packet comes in the mail in the end of February.